the recent directors of Bluefruit Software. Before that, actually, she worked in the sort of investing Cornwall, economic development of Cornwall, and she's actually got quite a few really interesting ideas and a slightly different perspective on how digital businesses are moving forward in Cornwall. So, over to you.
Thank you. Let's see if I can make the technology actually work. So, yeah, my name is Caitlin Gould, and slight change from what was there. Tiny little tweak. So what I'm going to talk about today is thinking about how we can all embrace tech trends to positively impact your businesses. So as Toby mentioned, my name is Caitlin Gould. I'm a director at Bluefruit Software, and my responsibility at Bluefruit Software is around kind of strategic growth and listening to and understanding what our clients are looking for. It's worth saying as well, prior to working at Bluefruit, in addition to working at Investing Cornwall, I also once upon a time worked in publishing, the print part of publishing, and was there while they were looking at digital transformation back in 2003, and watched all the interesting things that didn't go particularly well on weekly magazines. So at the moment, Bluefruit Software, so we're embedded software specialists. We work with clients to try to help them update, change, add new things, add new features to a lot of their different products. So as a result of being an outsourced software company, we get a lot of requests from clients to help them keep up with emerging trends. Can I connect this thing to the cloud? Can I have an app for that? Is there a possibility to just add a bit of AI? So I thought what could be interesting today is if we explore some of the technology trends a little bit deeper, understand how they impact businesses, and also try to think about how we can embrace these trends. Before I get started, just out of curiosity, because I know we've got a lot of different people coming, put your hand up if you do work for a digital business right now. Cool. So I'll tweak it a little bit. So I realize digital tech is a big field, and lots of people work in different potential silos within it. So I've picked a few trends that cross over a few different sectors. So at the end of this session, I don't really expect you to be an expert in this stuff. I'm not particularly an expert in it, but hopefully what we'll do is just inspire to think a little bit more about how we might be able to play with a few of these different trends, and maybe embrace and try out some new ideas. So where to even start? We're in a bit of a period of time where technology is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Most people are mis-talking about it, confusing people. What the heck is AI? So it's also kind of dangerous. So if you just jump on a trend and you don't really know what it is or why you're doing it, or which version of AI you're talking about, you could confuse people. This comes from the Harvard Business Review, and it's a pretty common example of what we hear sometimes from our clients, where someone somewhere has decided that they need to do digital transformation. They've put money behind it, they've got teams behind it, they're changing everything. They don't actually know what that means or how they're doing it. So before we start digging into the trends, it's important to think about why we're here. Just blindly following a trend, adding it's not a recipe. You can't smidge a little bit of AI into something and add a sprinkle of cloud. If you just jump on things and you don't properly understand them, that can lead to poor decision making. A lot of these changes can be really expensive. It can also steer your direction of your company in a wrong way. It can be a waste of time and money, and possibly also misunderstand the benefits that could happen. So if you implement something wrong that you didn't understand properly, you could then rule it out. So that's what happened in publishing. They tried to do web, it didn't go well, so this online thing, it's not really going to take off. Print is fine. So it's important that you actually understand what you're looking for. So for today, I'm not just going to talk about the trends. The really important thing is to think about the problems. So for people that are in digital companies, this is important too. When people are coming to you, when customers are coming to you, what problem are you solving for them? You're not just adding technology for the sake of technology. You're doing it, hopefully, to help them make an improvement on their business. Again, there's this big myth that digital transformation has to be huge changes, and it's going to change your whole business. Actually, a lot of this stuff is basically just using tools that are being developed all the time to make the business you already do better. So for today, we're going to try to focus on the desired outcomes and have a look at some of the really buzzwordy trends that are being talked about in the technology and digital space. So the ones I've picked, we've got advanced connectivity, beyond marketing, and hyper automation. So I wouldn't be following tech trends if I didn't have a cat photo. Those are really buzzwordy words. I kind of picked them on purpose because they sounded really out there. What I kind of look at is actually those words also encompass a large number of additional trends that are happening right now, and I promise we'll get into the real life versions of those. So, advanced connectivity. This has been around actually for at least 4 years. Essentially, it's kind of a culmination of Internet of Things, smart everything, advanced networking. So what do we actually mean? Well, the idea is this is all around the gathering, analyzing, and implementation of data, whether that's customer data or big data. What we're trying to do is be able to make better real-time decisions on more informed information from that data gathering. So this has been around for a while. The thing that's changing now is it's starting to actually make a genuine impact on a larger scale for everyday people. So we're seeing the scale of it grow. We're seeing it actually implemented on a global basis. Also the speed. We're getting 5G eventually rolled out, maybe even in Cornwall. And that means that we're going to be able to gather data faster than ever. We're also seeing increased networks. We've got a lot of things around power networking that's happening. So things are picking up pace in this area. And also, we can gather data from more things than we've ever had before. By all these manufacturing and device companies making all of their things smarter, we now have new sources of information to gather that data. So one example that I've picked to talk about today, we're in Cornwall, have agriculture all around us, looking at agritech. So going back to that, what problem are we trying to solve? It's kind of well known that the world, maybe, hopefully, we've got a food shortage crisis looming in about 50 years. So a lot of the big minds are trying to think about how can we increase crop yield and productivity. And they're looking at agritech and connectivity to try to improve that. So how can they gather data real time to make quick decisions using sensors? How are they looking at understanding larger trends as well? So having larger communication across the country, across the world around the challenges of soil degradation, impacts of climate change, disease control. And one company that you may have heard of called Microsoft, so they're getting into this a little bit. They've been exploring it a bit in the States and thought, especially because it's in the morning, I'll play a little video talking about what they're doing with farms.
This area is known as Stewart's Landing, and this is Dancing Crow Farm.
One of the world's problems is yield. How do you double the yield by 2050 to feed the growth of the population in the world? This is a project that we recently started. What we want to do is we want to enable data-driven farming. The first goal is to give a real-time view of the farm, the real-time pulse of the farm to the farmer, saying, hey, this is what your farm is doing right now. So how do you even connect these farms to the internet? It's so far remote, the cell carriers have very little incentive to provide connectivity in the farms.
The system that we have deployed here is measuring soil temperature and moisture, and it's coming from this sensor.
Here what you see is a white spaces device. The idea that we had was a farmer buys a white space router, plug it in the farm, and your entire farm is connected. Now you can connect multiple devices, and connectivity is cheap. So you can actually deploy many more sensors in the farm. You could have a dense deployment of sensors getting real-time view of all the parts of the farm. Not only your soil or moisture data, but this is a high bandwidth connection. You can connect cameras, get real-time views from the farm. So once you have all this data, you could then analyze the data to predict what the future would look like.
I'm actually really looking forward to how the process will change. This last year has been mainly a data gathering, information collecting year for the Microsoft research team. I'm really looking forward to seeing what research they've gathered this year, putting that together with what I think is going to happen next year, and make predictions for what I should plant when and where.
So I think for us especially, and again, if you are in a digital company in Cornwall, it's important to think about not only what is possible, but also how we can reach out to people around us and let them know what's possible. So again, it's an example of Microsoft reaching out to a local farm and saying, hey, look, let me help you out. Let me test out some stuff with you. Let me try out some of our software while also benefiting the farm. And that's something that we've got an interesting opportunity to think about in Cornwall, how we might be able to reach out beyond ourselves and do some of that experimentation. So, second trend, beyond marketing. So this is, again, going into that marketing space. So there's lots of stuff talking about the next wave of marketing at the moment. You've got things like hyper-local, experiential marketing, user-driven marketing, data-driven change. So what exactly is this? Well, we all have probably embraced social media, but it's thinking about what comes next. So with people constantly online and getting used to user experience, they're also getting used to things kind of being done the way they want to do it. So what Beyond Marketing is about is actually not just marketing and speaking out to customers, but listening back, and not just listening, but changing. So listening to what they're telling you they want, and then actually potentially changing how you offer your services, or think about how you might adjust what you do for them based on what they're telling you from the marketing. So what does that actually look like? So a local example of that, there's a local Cornish holiday company called Around Cornwall Holidays. They were seeing major disruption from Airbnb coming into Cornwall. So instead of just increasing their social media stuff, they looked at what was happening there. They looked at why were people booking on Airbnb. It's not just because Airbnb is great at marketing, they are, but also they looked at the trends in the flexibility that Airbnb was offering. They noticed that people were wanting 4-day holidays, not the traditional Friday to Friday holiday that Cornwall has done for a long time. So they changed what they offered people. They started offering 4-day holidays. It meant that they had to rethink cleaning and changeovers and things like that, but they saw a 15% increase in their bookings this summer when their competitors saw a decrease. And they put that down to those changes that they made. And the big thing was they learned from the disruptor instead of fighting against it or ignoring it. So the last one we're going to talk about is the most fuzzy one. Thank you, all the research that's out there at the moment of trend prediction. This one's called hyper-automation, incorporating artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, automation, human augmentation. So what is it? Basically, it deals with the application of all those advanced technologies, so thinking about some of the ones I mentioned, and how we can automate processes. And the main goals there are around improved discovery, analysis, design, automation, measurement, monitoring, and assessing data. Basically, using technology to take over a lot of the things that humans have been doing. So it's not about robots taking over the world, although sometimes it is. The example that we're talking about today is, again, thinking about business and what that can look like in business. So I picked healthcare. This is an area where people are really rapidly and actively investing in AI to make big changes. There's a lot of money being spent in the space, but they're starting to actually start to see some results. So, for example, we've got companies like GE, Siemens, IBM, looking specifically at things like better diagnostics within diseases. So they're using image recognition, and they're training computers through millions of images to be able to do things like read through CT scans to spot tumors. You've got, GE has actually been working since 2016 with a pediatric hospital in Boston to be learning how to read children's brain scans, which are really difficult because children's brains grow so quickly. But if they can get it right, the idea is that they'd be able to spot really early indicators of childhood diseases that could be prevented when they're children. So it's got a really interesting and impactful change on the world. And again, it's all about that improved speed, improved accuracy, and being able to do something where humans would take possibly weeks to to analyze all that data. If a computer can do it in seconds, that could literally save lives, not to mention advanced research much faster than we've ever been able to do before. It's really important with AI too. There's a lot of talk about it replacing people. It will in the sense of those researchers, but the idea and a lot of what people are talking about is it working alongside researchers. So you're replacing the menial tasks that can take a really long time, like reading through scans, and you have a huge amount of inaccuracy from human fatigue, things like that. And you're focusing the human work on understanding what to do with those scans, understanding how to work with patients, and actually being healthcare providers. And for a company or a country like the UK, where we've already got major pressures on the NHS, this could be a way that we could save a huge amount of money and focus the money on paying for doctors and nurses and carers instead of people looking through images. So I've just really started to touch on the top of the iceberg. There's so many other things we can talk about. We've got autonomous vehicles, not just your cars, but also full transportation of goods, autonomous tractors. We've got facial recognition software already being used by the police. We've got Nest in the States using their Ring doorbell to be accessed by police so they can set up a digital neighborhood watch. We've got Google saying that they've cracked quantum computing, which I'm not going to explain to you, but you can read about it online if you'd like to. It's not all scary and negative. There's also people who are really excited about technology being used to save some of the biggest problems that we're facing in the world, whether that's global warming or Brexit. There's a lot of interesting things that technology can be doing to try to make positive change. And especially for us in Cornwall as well, as Toby started to hint at, we have been massively impacted by technology and our ability to be able to be bigger than we've ever been before. We can stay the companies that we are, in the size we are, in the location we are, and yet we can have global reach. And that is very exciting. So I've talked about a lot of things today, some of it hopefully interesting. If you don't remember any of it, just remember you're here to solve a problem. All technology is created to solve someone's problem. So even if you are the technology provider, start with the problem for the clients. Don't just jump into the really cool stuff you know you can do. Make sure that what you're doing is helping your customer. And don't change your business to fit into a technology trend. Keep your business focused on what your business is supposed to be doing and adapt technology to make your business better. Keep up to date. All of the stuff I've talked about was found via Google. It's all free. I didn't download any paid for kind of £150 reports. There's a lot of great resources out there. It is changing all the time, so it's worth keeping an eye out. If you don't want to read really detailed analysis, there's some great ways to just kind of keep up to date. I highly recommend the Digital Human podcast, or even 50 Things That Save the Modern Economy. I learned what CubeSats were from that, so that's quite good. Also, Wired is a nice, usually easily accessible way to keep up to date with stuff. And then ask for help. Look around. We have a lot of great digital companies in Cornwall. We've got people in everything I talked about today. So we already have people that can help with agri-tech, digital marketing, AI, big data. We'll meet hopefully them all later on today. All of us in the room who do that, we can be working together on all this stuff, do some really cool collaboration. There's no reason why this stuff has to be out of reach for us. And the final thing is, these are really big trends. They're not just trends for us, they're not just trends locally, they're trends globally. And because of that, people are making tools to make this stuff accessible for us. So there's a lot of filter down things that you can do. You don't have to create your own AI specifically just for you. You can work with people to use the tools that are coming out there. You know, once upon a time, someone invented something called Excel, right? Before that, people used paper. A lot of paper. So don't be afraid to just use the tools, experiment a little bit, learn from others, see what other people are doing, and start small. I have a lot of resources. If anybody would like all these links, I can send them to you later. I'll put up a slide or I can tweet them to you. Just want to give credit. All of my photos were from Unsplash as well, and that's me.